Unit 9 of Governmental Accounting and Auditing is looking at financial reporting of state and local governments. So essentially, we are pulling together everything that we've discussed so far in terms of accounting and saying, okay, now this is how, after you've accumulated all of this information, how you're going to then communicate it externally to the users of the information in the governmental financial report. The reporting model consists of the basic financial statements, the notes to those statements, and required supplementary information. These are the components that anyone who is aspiring to a clean audit opinion under governmental accounting standards, under governmental GAAP, this is what they have to include at a bare minimum. There also may be some supplementary information that is required only if a government is presenting its basic financial statements in a comprehensive annual financial report. Then there's some information both that precedes the basic financial statements and comes after the required supplementary information if you're preparing a CAFR. One of the key things to understand in financial reporting as a foundational concept is the financial reporting entity. And what we're essentially talking about here is what is covered, what organizations, what activities are encompassed by the government's financial report. We're starting primarily with the primary government. That's the thing that most people think of when you say the city of New York or the state of New Jersey is the primary government. But these governmental entities also tend to have, and in both of those cases have quite a few, component units, legally separate entities that the primary government is financially accountable for. So you need to understand what constitutes a component unit and what are the circumstances under which that component unit is discretely presented, meaning it's in a separate column on the face of the financial statements apart from the primary government, or blended, meaning it's included inside of the numbers that you see for the primary government. The CAFR that I mentioned, you want to know what the sections are of the CAFR. There are 3 of them, and what the contents of those sections are. The first section is the introductory section, including the letter of transmittal. That's probably the most significant item in the introductory section. The things that we've been talking about up to this point really are the stuff that go into the financial section, the auditor's report, MD&A, government-wide financial statements, fund financial statements, so the governmental funds, proprietary funds, and fiduciary funds, the notes to those financial statements, and the required supplementary information. And this is the stuff that everybody presents. Even if they're not preparing a full CAFR, everybody has to present those items. Then the financial section also, after the RSI, has combining statements, such as a financial statement that shows all of the non-major governmental funds, which are shown in one single column on the governmental fund financial statements. The combining statement of non-major governmental funds would show each of those non-major funds individually. And then the third section is the statistical section, which presents historical information, generally for the past 10 years, showing what's happened financially over the past 10 years. That's the financial trends. Essentially, that's like 10 sets of financial statements laid right next to one another. Revenue capacity, so their ability to raise their most significant own source revenues. Debt capacity, their ability to issue debt, how much debt they have outstanding. Relevant economic and demographic information, and then operating information such as the number of employees by program or function, some indicators of how much service they provide, and some information about their capital assets that are used to provide services. One thing that is emphasized here that we've touched upon already, but it is a key thing to remember, is what the classifications of fund balance in the governmental fund financial statements are. There's non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. You should know what those classifications are. and you should be familiar with some of the other financial reporting issues that are addressed in the chapter, such as popular reporting, uh, financial reporting on an other comprehensive basis of accounting, or OCBOA. So, it looks like a GAAP-based financial statement, GAAP-based financial report, but it's not following GAAP in terms of the basis of accounting that is required, meaning accrual and then modified accrual for the governmental funds. So these other bases of accounting might be cash or modified cash. There are, I think the AICPA identifies 5 particular basis of accounting. Regulatory basis of accounting is another one. So that's a basis of accounting that a government is required to follow by its state government or by a regulatory agency that is different from what GAAP requires. You happen to be attending a university in a state that requires a regulatory basis of accounting for local governments, for cities and towns and townships and such, that is different from GAAP. So when you look at most financial statements for local governments in New Jersey, they're following this regulatory basis of accounting required by the state rather than following GAAP.